not like the urgency it used to be. My route's halved now.
Oh, really?
It's
Wow.
half of it. So my one of the other members stepped up to take half.
Oh, okay.
I had the biggest route.
Well, that's
I actually had two routes that I've been doing for almost 10 years. So
oh,
uh,
wow. Okay. That's good, actually, because actually an organization like Kiwanis relies upon its members, right? And members need to stand up. And I get it that, hey, if you'd have been asking me to do that route on a Monday morning, I'm going to work,
exactly.
right? I
Like
said, "Oh,
it used to take me nearly an hour and a half to do my route just to
yeah,
pick the stuff up and then calculate the sums and so on. Now it only takes me
yeah.
a you know
It wouldn't have
half
been
an hour.
that, you know, it's not the calculating that would have been the issue for me, but it's like, you know, it would be days like today when I have to be in work for 9 o'clock. I have to be up and ready and going for 9 o'clock, you
Yeah.
know?
So yeah. So it's perfect that
Yeah.
you rely on people that are retired or who have time in Monday
Yeah.
mornings, whatever.
Well, you know, if you know, like an unemployed person has time, right?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm glad you've got some people, you know, people who are stepping up. Okay, so let's start with that. So a judge blocks Trump's efforts to deport some Venezuelan nationals. So he even says, turn that bloody plane around.
Yeah, they try to fast one here. They want to produce results really fast and get these people out. But even the worst people have rights, and particularly in the United
Yeah,
States, and that seems to be the problem here. It seems to be that they want to do these things, but they also want to remove the rights of the people that they're doing that to. There is a rule of law in the United States. That's a very important part of democracy, even if you're dealing with bad people, because among those bad people, there might be one good people,
yeah,
one or two people that are there by terrible circumstance,
yeah,
whatever. They're more so they have to be protected to a certain amount, and Trump can't get his way all the time.
yeah. And the thing is that you know it's what's called due process, right?
Yeah. Well,
Everybody's got a requirement for due process. And the point being is that you might well be an illegal immigrant from Venezuela, but you've got to, you know, but the rule of law states that you know, that in order to deport you, they've got to actually go through the right processes. I heard over the weekend there was this person from Malaysia who've never been to Malaysia, but who was deported from the US.
well, sometimes yeah, sometimes you get somebody that comes into the country, has a child, never does bother with the citizenship thing, and then they got tossed out. Well, that happened to a Scottish, a Canadian guy who was born in Scotland but never converted his his uh, his citizenship, and he ended up being a pain in the ass criminal year after year.
Mm.
And then somebody thought, hey, wait a minute, this guy might have been lived here all his life, but he was born in Scotland and never got his papers to be a
No
Canadian.
longer our problem. Yeah,
Yeah, so we just pack him up and send him to Scotland, and that's what they did. And so they're doing the same
And the
thing here.
British said,
They're
thank you
doing the
very
same
much.
thing in the United States. Exactly. They're just finding anybody that's a kind of a freeloader, or because for every person that comes into the country that really does want to change their life, and they feel that illegal ways is is the only way open to them. There's like for every person there like there's just bunches of them just coming. And
Yeah,
what the states will probably do is try to get rid of all the criminal. They don't have ICE, and the Hammonds um, don't does not have the resources to do what they say they do. They want to get rid of 11 million people. They don't have nearly enough resources. Hammond's already badgering the government to give them more resources to get rid of more people, but they can't. They don't have enough money. So what they're going to do is take out 100,000 here, 100,000 there, and make it look good. But he really doesn't have the resources or to do what they ask him to do, which is enormous, enormous undertaking. So they'll shoot for the bad guys, which they should do, as we should do here in Canada. And anybody in the way will get picked up at the same time and then thrown out. But there are instances when their rights have to be obliged, like because the United States is a country of rule of laws.
Yeah. And the point being is, for example, the wife of a bad guy isn't necessarily a bad person.
Doesn't matter if she's legal; she's going to go away.
Yeah.
And the ideas have completely changed. Like, of course, the big thing is to come into the country and have a couple babies right away. If you do that, then the babies are American citizens. So in the past, okay, you tricked us. Okay, we have to let you stay now. But the idea now is, no, you're illegal. You leave. Your babies don't have to, but we don't want to separate your family. So we suggest you take your babies with you. Kind of thing. You can't stay here. Mom, you can't stay here. Dad, you can't stay here. These kids can stay here, but we don't want to split your family apart. So you're all going to be deported back to Honduras. And then when the kids grow up, they can come back, but don't, that we're not going to be fooled that way anymore. So that it's, I don't know, everybody.
Trouble is there's so many illegals.
Canada or the West.
Yeah, there's so many illegals out there in the US. The US is full of illegals.
Sure.
Or at least that's what the TV would have us believe.
Estimates are anywhere from 11 to 22 million.
Yeah.
And and I can tell you this: they're not gonna. ICE is going to be pushed upon not to go after the illegals that work in the farms.
Yeah.
Or meat factories or anything else where illegals work. Because because there's too much profits to be had. And no one else will do that work for a bag of rice and $1. So what they're going to do is, hey, ICE, guess what? Yeah, we got all these illegals working here, but they're making us huge cash. If they get hurt, we don't have to worry about them. If they get sick, we don't have to. We just dump and get a new one. Here's a campaign contribution to old Donald there, and then just kind of look the other way, okay?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that even I'm gonna have to say that I think he will find that judges will be particular about making sure the rule of law is actually lived by.
Well, they can hold this back for 14 days. That's all. Before so the judge for some reason has decided to step in and stop this particular group of people from being pushed out. But so there's going to be clashes with the law, and the biggest worry is the law going to be able to hold back Trump? Lawyers and law firms are already turning away any kind of work that might be irksome to Trump and the Republicans, because they don't want to get the reputations. They don't want to get the bad feedback that's coming. I've heard this a number of times, that many law firms will turn down any kind of job that might be irritable to Trump and whatever has become of the Republicans, because they don't want all the hate mail and the blowback from the Trump administration. So I don't know. That to me sounds pretty dangerous. If you're a legal firm and you're afraid to do legal work, I don't know.
Yeah, well, It depends upon the. It won't stop them deporting a lot of people, but it will stop some.
Well, yeah, well, I think by and large though they're going after criminals, and
Of course.
that's the first
Yeah.
place to go. I
Yeah.
don't really think they'll be able to uh, deport as many people as they think they do because they just do not have the resources. They only have, whatever way you think of it, whether you think it's a good thing, bad thing, or you don't care one way or another. The
And
very fact of the matter is that they do not have the amount of resources to do what Trump wants, which is 11 million people out of the country. They just do not have the ability to do that. They may have enough to get rid of 1 million, but and that would be tough because the ICE would have to be much larger than it is and much better funded.
And Karen is saying that basically many of those in the US are afraid of deportation are heading to Canada. And that's actually been true for quite some time because many of those that coming across the Roxham Road were afraid of deportation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the best thing we could do is turn them back into the United States because it's a third country thing. So so this business about strengthening the border is going to be better for us than it is the states. It was just a pretext in the first place by Trump to add tariffs and punish us for something we really didn't do. But we get more fentanyl. I know one politician or pundit. We get way more fentanyl than from the United States than we send back down. Of course, we get more immigrants coming our way than going the other way. But because Trump has done us this favor, we can hold back the last group of immigrants coming into Canada. They were caught coming in, not going out, I think. And so what they have to be done is turn back.
Also, the one thing to note about this is that so Donald Trump was looking for more border security, and RCMP is ramping up that border security. There's a story in the CTV News that was talking about one individual officer who used to be a desk-bound, primarily a desk officer, and now his typical day is anywhere along an 800-mile stretch of the border.
Yeah, I think it's quite good actually. We've taken our border seriously, and thank you very much, Donald Trump, for that. We have always had the reputation of being weak and wimpy on our border, weak and wimpy in our immigration policies. Look at the guys that came in that were Islamists a little while ago, and all the red flags were up, but they didn't have the ability to stop them because they didn't have the law in place or something, but they knew these Islamic terrorists were coming in, but they couldn't stop them because this agency didn't know what that agency was doing. So the idea that Canada is like very porous for very bad actors is true. So I think all of this has done us very good job indeed. It's probably helped us more than hindered us. It'll stop immigrants from coming in, refugees from coming into Canada, and it will stop fentanyl and guns coming into the country, cocaine, everything. So it'll be good for us more than the States, I believe.
Well, and the point being is they've ramped up the number of officers on this job, and they're no longer sitting behind a desk anymore.
Yeah, get the guys out there, get them doing work. But somebody's got to have to do the forever paperwork. I don't know where they.
Well, I was going to say, exactly what my thoughts are. But for every experienced officer you've taken out and put them on the road, you've still got to have somebody to do the paperwork at the end of the day.
Well, I think you could probably, hire somebody that's hire somebody that knows how to do paperwork. Why are you having a cop do paperwork? Right, as much, the cop.
But cops do have to
somebody else can do the paperwork.
Yeah, but cops still have to do the paperwork once they arrest somebody, for example.
Well, get AI to do it, then get back out there and do your job. Here's a robot. Give your statement to this robot. I got to go back out there.
Yeah, but I'm not saying, hey, I think it's overall it's a good thing. Most people are, beefing up the border security is the right thing to have done, right?
Probably, yeah, and a lot of things that Trump forced. Remember, we were getting really mamby-pamby there. Seriously, the government was not very practical. I like this. We're back to being practical, common sense type of let's fix our border. Let's add money to our defense. Let's do that. Let's start interprovincial trade. Let's do that. Let's complete some more pipelines. Let's do that. All these things are now. Before it was like, well, we want to do this, we don't want to do that, and you get the idea that they were way, way more concerned about a transgender person, than they were about the whole city of Calgary.
Well, yeah. Mm. Okay, so moving on. So after a lengthy meeting with Trump's trade officials on Thursday, Canadian representatives say they have a clearer picture of understanding what the rationale is between Trump's insistence upon tariffs. And this is actually, I've been thinking a lot about that, and all I can come up with is it's old-fashioned isolationism, and in my view, isolationism doesn't work.
Yeah, but at least the Trump endgame here is put out, and I think that's why I think Ford said it was the most positive meeting he's had yet, because they didn't hold anything back. They said at least what they wanted Ford and LeBlanc to know. Basically, what they're telling everybody is what everybody also knows. The United States has a crippling debt problem. Debt problem is they are spending more on their deficit, on their debt payments than they are on defense.
Yeah.
And actually, I was watching Neil Ferguson yesterday, who is this very conservative historian guy. I'm not sure I agree with him all the time at all, but he does have great observations. And he pointed out a Scottish Renaissance guy by the name of Alan Ferguson. We are more likely to know the other Adam Smith. But back in the 1760s, this guy, Adam Ferguson, determined through his research that once a nation pays more in debt than it does in defense, that's the end. That's where the nation will now begin to crumble and go away.
Yeah.
This has happened time after time. Civilization after civilization, empire after empire.
And he was probably
to this state.
Yeah, and he was probably using a Scottish example when he wrote that.
I don't know. I haven't read Adam Ferguson.
You haven't read it, yeah. But he probably was. He probably was, because Scotland was badly in debt at the time when, in 1701, when the Act of Union took place.
Well, this was written 60 years later, or over 60 years later. So
I
don't know if he was using that, but he was looking at empires all in all. Yeah. So this is nothing new. Ray Dalio has done his own version of this sort of thing when he watches how much a country gets in debt and how much they have to pay in debt. Well, the Trump administration knows this, and that's what they're trying to attack. But at the same time, they want to give tax relief to people, and they want to give tax relief to their rich friends. So they want to reduce taxes, but they have to make up that shortfall, and that shortfall is going to happen with tariffs. It's not going to work. In a short term, it might work somewhat, but in the long term, it won't work very well. But they think it will.
Yeah.
They want their cake and eat it too. Right now, they have an enormous debt, and they're quite clear about that when they were talking to
Well, and
the Ford and the other representatives.
let's be honest. Let's be honest about this, Dave. The prior Trump administration and many other administrations beforehand have done nothing to, kind of blindly, gone into the debt situation with the blinkers on. They've actually almost like, they've been blindfolded as far as debt is concerned.
Not Clinton. Clinton turned it around, and so did Chrétien. Chrétien government with Paul Martin. He was the mastermind, and the Clinton administration for the United States turned that back, and they were paying down their debts. Soon as Bush got in, he started spending, and from that point on, they've been spending like drunken sailors, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. So the Republicans started to get them back into debt with George Bush. Obama couldn't stop that because of the massive scam on 2008 when the Wall Street crashed, and he had to borrow huge amounts of money to save. Well, he did, probably the other previous administration did.
Oh, and I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but remember, Clinton was a long time ago. Clinton was pre 2007 collapse.
Yeah, but he was the one. He did the double whammy though. He started paying down the debt, but he also removed Glass and Steagall. Once he removed Glass and Steagall, that gave the investment banks all the license they needed to do the crimes that they did that caused the crash in 2008. On the other hand, he was paying down the national debt. He was paying down the national debt rather rapidly, and as a matter of fact, he had reversed the U.S. from borrowing. They were paying down their debt rather than increasing it. Every subsequent administration has increased it, including Trump.
Well, exactly what I was going to say. Since 2008, since the 2008 debt crisis, we've had every successive government come up to a point where they've kind of stuck their hand up and said, yes, we'll extend the debt window.
Yes. So the federal government ran a 1.83 trillion U.S. deficit. That's just the deficit. That's not even the debt. That's the deficit.
Yeah.
And it has to be addressed. But on the other hand, they want their cake and eat it too. So they can't go around raising taxes, which is the thing that will bring in more revenue. Now, raising taxes is a kind of difficult thing. You can only raise them so much that it doesn't reduce stimulus into the economy. So if you start raising taxes, that sort of slows down the economy a little bit. So you have to raise taxes in an intelligent way. So what they think they're going to do is reduce taxes and add these big tariffs, these reciprocal tariffs going on around the world. It won't work.
It won't work. No, it won't work.
Those tariffs are what the American people are paying. So when that bottle of wine comes in from France and they put a 200% tariff on it, that person that's buying it will buy it for its price with 200% more that the government of the United States charges.
Yeah.
It's basically a tax. It's sort of a hidden tax.
It is a tax. It's a sales tax.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sales tax wrapped up in another means. Because what will happen, it's a sales tax that is applied before the wholesaler gets it. So that bottle of wine went up from $10 to $30, and now you add HST on top of it, type thing.
Now, another reason why they were playing about how they're going to reduce this deficit, and it was Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, but that has not really done that well. They make it look like they've done a great deal, but they've addressed less than 1% of the government expenditures at the time. They've taken the low-hanging fruit, and they've got that wrong anyway. They've got most of that wrong. What they've claimed they've cut. It's taken already. The Doge has been sidelined as a recommendation agency right now, rather than an effective
Well, the biggest problem
effective means of cutting the deficit.
Yeah.
And the government spending. Trump put him on hold basically and told him, you only give advice, you only give suggestions, because with that big row they had with Rubio in the Oval Office, Trump sided with Rubio, and he says he's the guy that's going to cut, not you. You could only suggest.
But at the end of the day, government efficiency typically looks at the numbers of bureaucrats out there and says, hey, Dave, your job's duplicated by Bert and Mary, and I'm going to cut your job and I'm going to cut Mary's job and leave it all to Bert. Is
that really happening, though? Is that really happening right now? Is that actually happening? Is Doge actually doing that?
I don't know, but that's typically what happens when anybody looks at government wastage.
Yeah, if they look at it properly. Nobody knows for sure if Doge is working well.
Well, you see, the problem is what I experienced.
When they come up with stuff like, oh, you know what, Gaza's getting $50 million for condoms, Hamas is getting $50 million for condoms. Nobody looks at it and says, well, this is Gaza, Madagascar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And only $7 million, and it's going for HIV.
I did a stint of work, a consulting gig for the UK Department of Trade and Industry. And honestly, I was disgusted by the levels of incompetence that I saw there. I saw 3 or 4 managers with 3 or 4 departments where nobody's got a real frigging job. Nobody does real work. Mostly Mary reports to Joe, and Joe reports to Bert, and Bert reports to Abdul, etc., etc. There's 15 layers of this rubbish, and nobody does a real job in any of those 15 layers. You could probably cut 10 layers without batting an eyelid.
Well, without a doubt, that happens. But is Doge actually doing that? Are they really cutting the pork? What we hear is they're cutting people and they have to turn around and hire them back.
Yeah.
When Elon Musk confronted Rubio and said, you're not eliminating enough people out of your department, Rubio barks back, I need people to, I need Air Force regulators. I need everything. Like, you don't know. You want me to cut? What do you want me to cut? You want to cut anything, so they had this big argument.
Yeah.
And what happened to Elon is he got put back on the back burner. Your agency is only there for advice, which makes it the same as the agency that happened way back in, I think it was the 80s, where that same thing came up, where they had a same department that was supposed to remove and reduce government waste and expenditure, but they didn't give them any teeth. What happened in that meeting? Trump took the teeth away from Elon Musk. He's now useless. He probably won't last much longer in that job. That's my prediction.
And Karen Fraser says since the Liberals came in Canada, they've hired 100,000 staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, look at the basic thing here is they were upfront, or what seems to be up front with the Canadian delegation. We've got a really bad debt problem. We're going to have to make up that debt, but we want our cake and eat it too. So we do not want to put another tax on people. We're going to put this tariff. People don't really understand tariffs, that they're actually just another tax. But so we're going to put tariffs and remove taxes. We're just going to replace taxes with tariffs basically, and we're going to make a whole lot of money. And everybody in our country thinks that China or Canada or someone else is paying for this, for the tariffs, to be allowed to do business here, which is not the truth. But what it does is it slows down the world economy, and it may have detrimental effects to the U.S. economy that they haven't been able to predict yet.
Yeah, but again, if we got our heads screwed on, we need to turn it around. I'm not saying we don't do trade in the US, but we find other markets. We build trade elsewhere.
That takes years, and
it does. But
yeah, well, look, like I said before, time after time after time throughout my whole life that I've been politically aware, every 10 or 15 years or 20 years, we come up with this crisis. We are way too dependent on the U.S.
Yeah.
We got to find other markets. Then it all goes away, and then it comes up again. Yep. Here's just the latest.
But we're
going to do anything about it if we get a good trade deal with the U.S. We're just going to.
But we already have it. We already have a trade deal with Europe.
No, well, I mean, yeah, but not good enough. So the reciprocal tariffs. We'll see what's going to happen here. Obviously, the Lutnick and whoever the other guy is. Oh God, he's lost. Shit, it's lost in my head.
All right.
Anyway, so whatever. They're very convinced that this is going to work. They're hardliners on this tariff thing. They think it's going to work, and they're looking for low-hanging fruit. That means if we have to get money off of somebody, we're going to get it off the Canadians. It's right there. We can't get it off of the Chinese. We can charge tariffs on their stuff, but we're never going to get the industries that we moved there to China back again. But we can pick on Canada. It's easy. It's low-hanging fruit. So that's basically what they're thinking.
Okay, so here's a question from Karen. Is Musk going to charge Trump consultant fees? Absolutely he is.
Let's put it this way. If there's some prime little contract here or there, government contract, he might get it. But right now, Musk is finding it very difficult. His own personal fortune has dropped $100 billion. The stock on Tesla has gone down rapidly, 15 to 20%, somewhere in that range, over 15%. He has money that he's borrowed for X, formerly Twitter, and it has to turn a certain amount of profit, or the money he borrowed to finance it comes back to haunt him. So there are many things that need his attention in his own businesses that he can't attend to. So that's why I think one of the reasons it'll be his excuse to walk away from Doge, I believe. Yeah. I don't think it's going his way. I don't think he was able to do much that he thought he would be able to do. And he's been a bit of an embarrassment for the Trump government at this particular time. So I think you get the golden handshake and say, oh, look, thanks very much for doing this for nothing. But you know what? We see that you have to go back to your own business and keep that going.
And with the state of Tesla right now, oh my God.
Yeah, seriously, he needs to attend to his own businesses. I don't think he anticipated this at all. He thought he was going to have some fun fixing the world. But like Henry Ford or any of these huge or Nelson Rockefeller, any of these other big industrialist money people, they usually do politics really badly. Stick to what you know. Stick to SpaceX and Tesla. Don't get your nose into politics because you just don't know what you're doing.
All right, moving on. Niagara Falls residents will be able to have their say on owner-occupied short-term rentals. Now, I'm a bit concerned about the wording here. Owner occupied normally means bed and breakfast properties, not short-term rental. And there's a difference between the two. A short-term rental is one where there's a lockbox and the renter gets a key from the lockbox and goes in, whereas a bed and breakfast is one where, by a definition, if they're owner occupied, then by definition they live in there.
Yeah, well, the way I read it was, as long as there's a resident in, like, you can, I kind of got the idea that if you got a spare room, you can rent it out. And this was going to help you cover your mortgage. This is a means by which the city council feels that you might be able to make a little extra money, help you with your mortgage, help you with your payments. If you got a spare room, or if you live on the bottom floor, you can rent out the top floor, something like that. And you can have one person or one family, depending on how many people, according to whatever the law is, how many people you can have in a space that as big as you want to rent out. So I would say that basically it's I don't know, just a means by which what is happening anyway is going to become legal, so that
I
they
think
can actually regulate it.
Well, owner occupied is already legal. It's a bed and breakfast.
Well, what's it all about then? What, in your view, what's it about?
That's what I'm curious about, because it's what I want to try and find out about it. The owner must be present on site while it's being rented. Absolutely. That means that it's got to be the same as unless of course you're talking about if you're talking about on site, where basically I've got a house where I've got a duplex in the house, I'm still on site if I live on the basement, if I live in the downstairs apartment where you rent the upstairs apartment.
Sure. You have the whole idea, though. It's different from the Airbnbs, where people were not there. Where some Airbnbs, they had extra room.
Some of the vacation rentals.
But other people rented their house to partiers that went. 18 people crashed into their house and partied all weekend and annoyed the neighbors.
The partying thing, I'm not saying it doesn't go on, but it's not as wide as Wayne Thompson would have you believe.
Well, it had been an issue in certain neighborhoods, and they couldn't stop it.
True.
So a certain neighborhood, this particular house would be rented to a lot of people over and over again. They make a lot of noise. They make a mess. And no matter how many times the people in those neighborhoods tried to have something done about it, the law wasn't on their side.
Yeah.
Bylaw couldn't do much. So I think what they're trying to do is sort out some of these things. I think what they're doing here too is people are going to rent out a room in their house if they have it. They're just going to do it to make some coins. So what they're going to try to do is find ways in which to regulate that, to make sure the room is safe. Does it have smoke alarms in it? All kinds of other things. This of course is said to have taken away rooms from the main tourist section. But let's face it, there are so many people. What it doesn't talk about in this article is people want a place where they can have a kitchen and a fridge and things like that. And why is that? Because the average person nowadays cannot go down to where the hotels are. They are way too expensive.
Yeah.
And they are not taking, they say, well, they're taking rooms away from the hotel district.
No, they're not.
These people wouldn't come if they had to stay at those hotels. At least this brings them into town.
Well, and the other thing is about, so where you're talking about vacation rentals, where you're talking about a duplex where I'm renting out the upper 2-bedroom apartment, that duplex, that's a family that gets to stay, which if they were to go to a hotel room, they have to book 3 or 4 rooms in a hotel, which is, where we're probably talking about $900 to $1,000 expenditure. Whereas when they do this with a vacation rental, they can do it, a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so when I read this, I thought to myself, well, yeah, you got a family or you got a couple of friends or whatever, and you want to come down to Niagara Falls, you want to stay a day or two. Are you going to go into one of those hotels? Cost you a fortune,
Yeah,
right? Do you want to eat in restaurants? It's still too much. This is a means
yeah.
by which the average person can come
Well,
down here and
let's be
stay and have a nice, and they can still bring their money. You know what I mean?
and let's
What you want
be
to do is increase tourism. In Southeast Asia, they have tourist facilities for everyone, from high end to very low end.
yeah.
You know,
Let's
what
be
their
blunt
idea is
about
to
this.
bring everyone in, make accommodations for everyone.
Let's be blunt about this, Dave. Ever since Niagara Falls has been here, there have been short-term rentals available unofficially. What would happen is people would show up, they walk into the convenience store and they go, "Do you know anybody around here who lets out rooms for the night?" Yes, go down Maple Avenue. Mrs. Smith at 4123 offers it.
Well, I think it's basically what I said earlier, that hotels and stuff are basically too expensive for the average
Yeah,
person,
yeah, yeah.
and something like this is what's required. But I don't know. I haven't made that much of a study of it or anything like that. But that's just my idea. Um, I know that I could, when I was in Southeast Asia, I could travel very, very cheaply there. Um, and if I was to, but if you say you go to someplace like the Caribbean or something, you don't have that variability. You don't have that kind of resort that's inexpensive or whatever.
Yeah.
You could travel around the islands or something like that. It's all high end to tech. There's
You look,
different philosophies here.
yeah,
I
but
really
you look
don't
at it,
think it will take accommodation away from the big hotel chains,
it
because
doesn't.
these people wouldn't come if they had to pay that, or if they did, they would only stay a day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And the big hotel chains have got their market. The short-term rentals have got their market. So the difference between bed and breakfast, I was looking it up. Okay, so with a bed and breakfast, if I've got a house and I've got 3 rooms in it, and I'm running a bed and breakfast, I live in one room and I rent out 2 rooms to somebody else. Whereas if I'm using a owner occupied short term rental, I'm still renting out to but I'm renting out to one family rather than individuals who fill the rooms up, right? But the difference being is that there has to be some separation for the short-term rentals, because so I'm living in the basement, not it's not a room. You're not staying in a room in my house type thing. That's the difference between bed and breakfast and the owner occupied short-term rental.
I don't know. Um, I don't know. I have really no more opinions on it, other than that if it's a means by which to bring more people into our town and make our town more affordable to the average person, I'm all for it. But
Yeah.
I really don't think that it's going to stifle any hotels, because those same people probably wouldn't come otherwise.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. The other thing about it, by the way, is that um, um, basically this won't compete with availability of normal rental units, because these units arguably not available on the rental market anyway.
Yeah. So what
You
else
know.
we got?
Okay, so moving on. Niagara's population is now 500,000.
Yes, indeed, it's huge. Well, I was surprised at how much students it was. So it's exploding. We're now 500,000 people. That was rather quickly done, because very a little while ago, our numbers were like 440, and then it went up to 487. Now it's 500. Well,
Well, the,
of course, anyone from Hogtown who wants to live in a place that's nicer but still have the urban cities to which to for the convenience. I think Hogtown, of course, every immigrant, 9/10 of the immigrants go to Hogtown and then they go out other places. Well, most of the new immigrants have discovered Niagara, and as you can see, if you look around, I don't know how many. I think half the Sikhs in the world live around here. Half the Sikhs and half the South Asian community lives in Niagara. It seems to me. Every store I go into, every delivery that comes to the door, as soon as I walk down the street, there's South Asians everywhere. They, of course, would be pinballed from Toronto down to here. So yeah, I think our area is growing, and it's because it's a nice area. And where else are you going to go when Hogtown costs so much? Where are you going to go? You're going to go as close as you can get to Hogtown and still be able to afford a place to stay.
Yeah, well, you see, our board on the border says that we have a population of 87,000. In fact, our population is 112,000, up from 105,000 in 2023 and 97 in 2020. So Niagara Falls has been growing. In comparison, also St. Catharines has been growing. It's currently 152,000. Whereas in 2020, it was 142,000. So it's gone up 10,000. Whereas Niagara Falls has gone up a heck of a lot more. Welland is 56,000 compared to 63,000. Yeah. So 63,000 in 24, right? So that's gone up by 7,000.
A large part of it is students too. So we have new immigrants that account for a lot of it, but also students, lots and lots of students. And
you were talking about the Indian community. A lot of the Indian community that I've seen now in Niagara Falls seems to have come from Brampton.
Yeah, of course. Like Brampton's really expensive. Hogtown's really expensive, right? So where are you going to go? And it's close. It's Southern Ontario. They're not going to go north. They're not going to go north. You think they're going to go to Sudbury or Thunder Bay or something like that?
Well, Barry's is expensive.
They're going to want to stay close by into the more milder sections of, seriously, you'd want to stay in the more milder parts of Canada, closer to where your family originally came. So you're still within community, like shooting distance of Brampton or Hogtown, where most of the other immigrants are. So I think it kind of makes sense that this place is going to get filled up with Hogtownese.
And Hogtownese not just being those that came to Hogtown.
Yeah.
Oh, that
permanent residents 9,201, immigrants 6,200 from other provinces. Somewhere in here it gives it the student numbers.
I didn't see the student numbers.
Yeah, it says something about. Well, maybe it was a different article, but anyway, a big part of it would be students coming into the area because, of course, we have Brock University, Niagara College, that kind of thing. So there's probably a good deal of students make up that. And of course, they don't want to go home, so we might be stuck with them too.
Well, typically you have a flow through of students anyway, who typically do add to the population because, as you rightly said, students don't always go home anyway. Many students, they come to an area. If they like the area, they stay there.
Well,
they get boyfriends and girlfriends, etc., in that area, and that causes them to stay.
Well, the idea was to get into Canada, do your education, and then you get to stay. Well, the rules have changed. You cannot have, 2,000 graduates of hospitality and think they're going to get a job. And we will take the best ones in the STEM situations or the computer situations, but not the ones that really don't have much that we can't get somewhere else. So the rules have changed, and that unfortunately is pushing a lot of the students back to where they came from, wherever it is, China or India or Africa or whatever. Now, of course, I don't know. We're going to end up with a lot more of them. Ukrainians too. I don't see us sending the Ukrainians back. They're supposed to be in the country for 3 or 4 years, but I don't see them going back either. Not.
It's been, many of them have been here at least 3 years now.
Yeah, and they they fit more in with our culture because their culture is more closely to ours. So I can't see them being pushed back. Plus, they're in a war zone, and that's never been resolved.
Yeah.
So I don't think the government was supposed to give them 3 years and boot them back, but I don't think that's.
I was seeing something in the news about. I saw something in Facebook. Of course, they don't link articles anymore on Facebook. I saw a headline about Ukraine, but couldn't actually find the news. Couldn't find the news clipping. Otherwise, we'd have been discussing it today.
Yeah.
I couldn't actually find the news. But anyway, it is what it is. All right. Okay. So 2009, Sweden was replacing books with computers. Now, 15 years later, they're investing 104 million euros to reverse that and, invest in books as well. I think there's a happy medium.
They were told. I bet you they were told at the time. What?
I think there's a happy medium between the two, I think.
Well, they did the rash decision. Well, it seems rash now, but at the time it probably sounded logical. Let's get rid of the books. Let's go completely computer. That'll save us some money anyway, because we can get any kind of book we want on this computer, and this will make our kids quickly tech savvy and all that. What they found out that it didn't really work. They want the books back again. They didn't think it out as well as they should. And my point here is, I bet you there was dozens of people telling them at the time, do not make that switch so quickly. Keep books, keep writing, those kind of things. What they have found with the tech thing, which was supposed to improve them, that reading and writing skills have declined. So if reading and writing skills have declined with technology, then you have to go back to the place where reading and writing skills were good, and that was with book and pen and pencil.
And when you think about it, Sweden is one of those nations that we tend to put up there as one of the top nations in the world about reading, reading skills and literacy. So if Sweden thinks they've done something wrong, watch out, everybody else.
Yeah, so basically they're looking around to buy back their old books for top dollar, 104 million euros. They want to buy books for the kids. So what's happened here is they found that the electronic education didn't do what it was supposed to do. So they got kids that don't know how to write and kids that aren't reading as well as they should.
Yeah.
Because it turns out that the computer is a distraction, because they can take away from the computer, take that computer and go off to whatever cartoon they want to watch or where else they want to do with the computer. The computer, the very act that the computer is a distraction. So you're not having, if they had Kindle books or something like that where you couldn't use it to access online or something like that, that might work. But the computer itself wasn't working.
Again, Dave, there's still 100. For every book that you're telling me that I must read, there's 100 other books that I can still access, including cartoon books.
Yeah, sure. It's it's a distraction. What they found is the computer adds to the distraction. I think that's a general problem with everyone, even adults, even me. When I start looking stuff up, I get distracted with all the other stuff that happens to be there. I mean, it might be still on the same topic or related to the topic, but it isn't long before I'm wandering away from the topic, when all the availability of all the different information is there. But if you have a book and you have to read the book, then that's different, isn't it? You don't have a distraction, You can only look at the cover a couple times as mean as
well, and the whole point is that the book idea is something that everybody's reading the same book in school, right? Everybody's got that same book in front of them, and the teacher can quickly see that, oh, Johnny's only on page 6, where everybody else is on page 116, right?
Yeah, and basically here is a pen. Write down the answer. You don't know how to spell. You don't know how to write. If you don't know how to write a sentence and express yourself, that's what they found in the universities right now. They have to have when the university kids come in, they have to teach them how to write a paragraph. They have to teach them grammar. That kind of thing. The famous Lindsay Shepard, who got in trouble and got sort of bullied by Laurentian University there when she tried to expose her students to a variety of different inputs, including Jordan Peterson. She was forced. She was censored and stuff like that. What her job was and what she said is the students that they admitted to the universities for whatever reason, there's a large amount of them that don't know, like the only language they know is English. They don't know how to write a sentence. They don't know how to write a paragraph. They don't know how to do anything, even write. So they have to be taught that. For some reason, the university lets people in like that. So,
well,
if it's going on in university, well, come on.
Well, actually, one of the things I inquired about that off of a university professor. He said, yeah, the problem here is that we get people of all manners, all degrees of reading capability and writing capability, and we actually have to bring them up to a particular level which we need them to be working at in order that they can continue with their university degree. So often the first 6 months is to bring the class to that reading and writing capability level.
Yeah, which I find is awkward because they should be there when they walk in.
They should be already there.
Yeah, that's another reason why the universities are not being selective anymore. They want more people rather than the best people. So they said, okay, well, how much qualifications you got? I have pencil. I know speak T. I know 3 numbers. Okay, good. That's good enough. Here, give me your tuition fee, right? And then they last a year and then they're out. But the whole thing is to move students through the system.
Yeah.
And even when one of my sons was doing computer science at Brock, I think it was all the people that entered computer science should not have been there. Shouldn't have been there. I think he was, I think about only one out of 10 actually finished the program that actually started it. Well, and they shouldn't have. The other ones, many of them shouldn't even have been there. But the university lets them in, takes their money for a couple of years, and then they have to find something else. The student themselves have to find something else to.
The irony is, of course, when I did my degree, Dave, it was a law degree. So when on the first lecture, which was standing room only, the lecturer turned around and said, look to your left and your right and in front of you and behind you, because 4/5 of those students won't be here when we finish the course.
Yeah, and they could have gleaned them a little better, but the fact is that they want money. Years past, you got into university because you had family connections or you had the capability of doing it. You do a certain amount of academics in school and show that you have promise and you can get in through your abilities. But now it's just like it don't care who your abilities are. We're gonna take 80% more than we need just to get a couple of years of tuition out.
Everybody in that law class got in because of their abilities. They weren't just let in freely. They weren't just, you had to prove your educational background.
Well, they obviously didn't clean them close enough if they're losing 80%.
Well, the point about that is that they were making the demonstration that law isn't for everybody, and many people that were in this degree won't actually last the degree because it's a tough course.
Well, sure, it's a tough course, and they actually didn't screen them well enough, and they didn't provide enough information to the students to make it more right. If they had half drop out, it would be better. But you're saying 80% gone. Something's wrong there. Something's very, very wrong there.
Well, they wouldn't agree that it was wrong. They would basically just say that was normal for their course. But anyway.
I think it was just they want to suck in more tuition money.
All right. Okay. So I think we can kind of call it quits at that point.
Yes. And without further ado, I bid you adieu. I like the article. If you that article about the end game, Trump's end game, and what Lutnick has revealed to Ford and LeBlanc and the others. I don't know how much of it is complete, but it sure give you a pretty good idea what at least the more rational people behind Trump are looking at. And so the bombast and the chest and the growling and hissing that Trump does, there's actual real reasoning behind it. Now you'll notice that Lutnick will make fun of Trudeau, make fun of Ford, talk and tell everybody that Trump is the biggest genius he's ever met. And that's a big lie, of course. It's Lutnick and his other guys behind him that are doing the real work. And so, but it will give you a very good idea of what the administration's end game is. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.